Hi, my name is Shelagh Meldrum. I'm the Chief Nurse, Deputy Chief Exec and Director of People at YDH, and I'm joined today by my colleague Mark Appleby, who's our Director of HR and Organisational Development. I just want to take you through a story about our international recruitment. Next slide, please. So 4 years ago, we started off in a pretty poor place. We had quite a lot of nursing vacancies already. We were predicting even more, so about 103 whole-time equivalents, which for a trust of our size is a devastating number of vacancies. Our nursing turnover was very high at 30%. And that's because we are a rural trust, and 43% of our leavers were going in less than a 1 year service. Again, probably a reflection of where we're placed and the hospitals that surround us. Nursing vacancies really peaked at that point, and we were spending about £250,000 a month on agency. So that was 4 years ago. Next slide, please. So we needed to look at where we were going wrong, really. We realised quite quickly that our EU nurses weren't staying. They were coming to us and then heading off to the bright lights of Bristol and London. Our recruitment experience wasn't great, so we really took ourselves to task around that. We were doing a lot by Skype interview, etc. Our retention rate, as I've discussed before, wasn't great. Some of that really linked to how we were recruiting people, as well as the fact that, as I said before, people were looking for the bright lights and we didn't have those in Yeovil. We had undertaken a big campaign in India, and we were very happy that we'd made 125 offers, but actually 98% of those people withdrew. So again, we realised there was something wrong with the way we were recruiting internationally. Additional issues really was that Skype, as I said, didn't work for us. Our location, we needed to make sure that candidates knew where Yeovil was and what it had to offer. And also the skill set of the team needed to be increased to enable us to recruit better. Next slide, please. So what did we learn? Well, we learned that we needed to take a whole approach to recruitment, and that was that it wasn't the job of the HR team or the nursing team. It was a very joined up approach, with everybody completely focusing on the nurses themselves. We invested in a dedicated team, so we wanted people who actually were absolutely passionate about getting the recruitment right for the candidates themselves. We looked at well-being and the experience that our candidates faced, and did a lot of work around that. We overhauled our whole recruitment process, so we spent a lot more time travelling abroad, doing face-to-face interviews, getting to know our candidates. We put in place excellent onboarding, and I can't tell you how important that is. So from the moment that the nurse was offered a job, they became part of our family. We kept in touch with them. We made sure their entire journey, both in their own country and then on arrival here, was perfect. We looked at the countries that we were recruiting in and selected just a couple of countries, but we were going to be excellent at recruitment in those countries. We developed our retention plan because we wanted to make sure that if people came, they stayed with us and they stayed for the right reasons. And we also redesigned our OSCE training, which Mark will take you through in a moment, because we had to make sure that it was such excellent training that people passed first time, or at the worst, second time, and that we weren't losing people because of OSCE. Next slide, please. So we tentatively started doing things ourselves in the first place, and we began to see that obviously our conversion rate started to increase, so we were getting things right. Next slide, please. And we became quite good at it. These are obviously all pre-COVID, non-socially distanced pictures, and up until since April 2018, we've had 1,100 nurses arrive, and they're still arriving. As I say, I think we've become good at what we do. Next slide, please. hand over to Mark.
Okay, thank you, Shelagh. So as Shelagh says, they do need to pass their OSCE, and they've got 8 months to do that, and they've got 3 attempts before they have to return home. But we do use the staff as band 4 unregistered nurses. They're part of our skill mix. They're not supernumerary, and they're a fantastic contribution to our workforce even before they pass their OSCE. But clearly they do want to pass their OSCE, and that's really important that we help them do that quickly. But you can't just leave it to the nurses, because it is a difficult exam, and if you don't support them, they will be quite stressed and have anxiety. But if you help them, they normally pass at first time. Next slide, please. And we've put a lot of effort into our OSCE training, and we've become very good at it. We have a first time pass rate of 97% and 100% second time, and that compares to the national average of 82. And it consists of a 4-day intensive course. We know some organisations support their nurses over a period of months by dipping in and out of a programme to support them, but we find an intensive course runs much better, and then we actually run the course under exam conditions so that they understand what it's going to be like when they actually sit the exam. Next slide, please. So what impact has this had? Well, we've now moved to 0 nurse vacancies, which is just fantastic. And our turnover has dropped from about 30% to 15%, but our overseas nurses is even lower at 11%. Our sickness has also dropped from around 4.4, we were in line with the national average before, to 2.2. And very importantly, our nursing spend has dropped from £250,000 a month to £33,000 a month, and still dropping. And for a small hospital like ours, that was a huge drain on our resources. And our morale has also significantly increased. Next slide, please. So this is just I just thought I'd show you this slide because it just shows you the contribution overseas recruitment has made on our spend. So 72% of our nurse spend was substantive in 15-16 and is now 86%. And the next 2 lines, you can see that we used to rely heavily on on agency staff, sorry, and quite lightly on bank, and that's completely reversed. So now our agency usage is only 1.9% of our agency usage. Okay, next slide, please. So, staff survey. By having 0 nurse vacancies and having a workforce that's got, is more stable, and staff come to work knowing who they're going to work with, has made a big impact. And it's affected our staff survey quite significantly. So for the last 2 years, we've had the highest staff response rates in the country, 71% 2 years ago, 72% last year. We'll still wait and see how we do this year. Hopefully it'll still be good. We were best in the NHS for staff health and wellbeing for the last 2 years, and best in the NHS for quality of immediate managers. But we've also done really well in some other areas as well. So we're really delighted with the impact that's had on our survey. Next slide, please. But don't take my word for it. There's a couple of quotes there. That's from Cecil David on Ward 9A. I just let you read that. And then next slide, please. From Juliet and Shetta on 8A, again, giving us some really good feedback. But, we make a point of listening to all our new starters. So Shelagh and I have focus groups. It's a bit more difficult with COVID, but we have to do that remotely. But before COVID, we would have a focus group with all our overseas nurses, just to make sure that we learned from their experience of coming into the country, and whether there was anything else we could do to make it a better experience for them. Next slide, please. So we don't just recruit for ourselves, we now support 16 trusts. In fact, in the last 2 days, we've had 2 more trusts join us, so now it's 18 trusts that we're supporting, and that's just some of them there that we help. Next slide, please. But COVID has been a challenge. So between March and September, we haven't been able to go overseas, but we did go back to Dubai in October, and we had one of our most successful trips. We weren't just recruiting nurses, but also radiographers, and it was a really fantastic trip. And we've come back with so many more nurses and radiographers that want to come to the UK. Quarantine restrictions have made life difficult, and even though the travel corridor has opened with Dubai, which is where a lot of our nurses come from, we still encourage our nurses in other trusts that we support to have a 2-week quarantine period. But it's a matter for them, but that's certainly something that we do to just ensure that we keep our hospital safe. But you can see that we have really begun to have a lot of arrivals since September. All the way from March, April, May, June, July was quite quiet. But in September, we had 89 arrivals for other trusts, 83 in October, and we expect we'll have 86 in November, and we think that will continue to rise. So during COVID, we've also been, next slide, please, Aaron. We've also been looking at other countries that we can recruit from. And we've just made sure that we don't recruit from any countries on the WHO list, the World Health Organization list of countries you can't recruit from. Ethical recruitment is just so important to us. We want to ensure that we are an ethical employer representing the NHS. And last year, next slide please, Aaron, we were really delighted to win the award for Best International Recruitment Experience. So thank you Nursing Times for that award. We are really delighted to have won that, so thank you very much. And finally, I just want to say that if any of you would like some support with your overseas recruitment, we'd be delighted to help you, so do please get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you.